you know, okay, there's an echo. Sorry. Does somebody have their mic on? Or, okay, that's better. So again, good evening, welcome. It is, as I said, Tuesday night, school night. I have to hand it to you. Thank you so much for coming. That shows your dedication and your passion for your students and getting to know who they are. It's you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to get to know, build relationships. So thank you, thank you. And as Kelly mentioned, in case some of you missed because of her internet going in and out, please do introduce yourself in the chat. Put your role and where you're coming or zooming in from with us here, or to us, I guess. And also, as you know, you're introducing yourself in the chat, put one thing you think you know about your Muslim students. And it's okay if you don't. I just would like to know what we're starting off with. So as you're doing that, I'm just going to quickly give you a little bit of my background. I will be your instructor for the Understanding Muslim Students Pathway. So my name is Farhana Shah, as Kelly mentioned. It's just the way it's spelled. Shah has the H, the Asian Shah H, not the W. So I have a master's in education with a focus in administration, and I kind of got stuck in the middle as a middleman because I just love being a department lead for English language learners. And there's just so many layers and levels to them that I just didn't want to move, go up the ladder. So I'm here. I've been doing this for 7-8 years in terms of the department head, but teaching is over 20 years, leading teams and providing staff development. And writing the Understanding Muslim Students course has been a journey for me. Post 9/11, there were a lot of discrimination and bullying with students. And more importantly, or I should say sadly, is that there were teachers also who were bullying their Muslim students. So looking at those facts, I created Islam 101 in 2006. And then based on feedback over the, as I facilitated and created overview of Islam for educators, and I wanted to put the education or educator in the title of the module so we know where the focus is. And then that course in 2016 became part of my school district's equity courses. And then from the feedback I received from the teachers saying that it needs to be a semester-long course. So, COVID happened, or the pandemic happened. Not that I had a lot of time, but since I was at home, I had the opportunity to just use the feedback and then ended up creating Understanding Muslim Students Pathway. And, I got a chance to work with Kelly, got a chance to meet her. We started talking, and here I am. We have 3 15-hour courses, and I'll go over the names of that. And then basically, I do a lot of community work. Anywhere there's a need in terms of providing understanding for the Muslim community. And then working currently, I'm consulting with the Smithsonian Institute, working on Islam in Africa series. Just, a little bit here and there, wherever there's a need, people reach out, whether it's writing an article or providing narratives. I just do that. I just feel like that we do have a lot of voices for our other groups of students. I didn't see any voice out there from Muslims. So I took the opportunity in 2006 to create this. So here we are, and hopefully we'll get to expand on this. So as I said, Understanding Muslim Students Pathway entails 3 courses. The first one is getting to know your Muslim students. And this is about to start, as you see the date. And the second and the third, Muslims past and present, role of the Muslims in the US and globally. We hope to, English Learner Portal hopes to provide and bring it to you actually, either by or the end of, by or before November. So you'll have access to all 3 of the courses and be able to get 3 credits. So I'm really excited about that. All right, so we know there are a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about our Muslim students. And because we have so much on our plates as educators, and since the pandemic happened, where is the time to get to know our students? So we do need to make time to get to know, because relationships are crucial. And we know research backs that up, that if you have a relationship with a student, half of at least the success would be guaranteed, because they will want to come to school, they'll want to learn, they'll want to, they'll approach you for support. So it's very important. And if you don't know anything, then it's hard to build a relationship. So thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and get started. But before we do that, Kelly, did people put down what they knew? Is there anything in the chat that we can read that people already know?
Let me scroll up here.
Okay, thank you.
Students may ask for a prayer break. Some wear head coverings.
Okay.
Scrolling. Muslims can belong to many cultures around the world.
Wonderful. Okay. One more, and then we'll go on.
One more.
If there is something.
My Muslim students are committed to their faith. My Muslim students are a tight-knit community and all know each other, and their families often get together for big meals and soccer games. They do not eat pork. Muslim students observe Eid. That's what we have so far.
Okay, that sounds good. Great. We'll be touching upon some of those today in the 5 things. There's tons of things, but we're going to focus on 5 things. So let's start with all Muslims are not Arabs. So teachers need to know that, because this is like one of the biggest misconception that is out there, that all Muslims are Arabs. And I actually myself have experienced this. And you can guess why, because I wear the hijab, I may have a lighter skin. So people automatically assume I must be from, the Middle East or an Arab country. And I've often been mistaken for, being a Turkish or Iranian or Jordanian. So it's really important for our teachers to know that most of our students that are attending public schools were born in the United States. And most of those students are not of Arab descent. Actually, and I have it on here so you can read as well as I talk through it, our largest group of Muslims in the US is the African American Muslim community. They comprise of at least 30% of the Muslims in the US. So I'm sure that was a new learning for many of you. The Asians are next in the US. However, the Asians are worldwide, they are on the top in terms of the Muslim majority countries. And just to kind of put it in perspective for you, like a bigger picture, this is from 2016. I did have one from 2010, but in that one, there were only 2 countries that switched. So this is 2016. This is the latest that I could find, the top 10 largest Muslim populations in the world. So if you look at Indonesia, did that surprise you? Pakistan is number 2. In 2010, India was number 2 and Pakistan was here. Now, after the 4th one, you see Egypt is the first Arab country. So after 4 South Asian countries, you see the first Arab country. Then you have Turkey and Iran, which were not Arab. Then you have Nigeria, Algeria, Sudan, and so on. And then they are Arab countries. So this is just to give you a big perspective on where Muslims are, majority Muslims, and they're not Arabs. Number two, Muslim students have few obligations, or I should say more obligations than other students or students of other faith. So during the school day, there may be one or two prayers that may fall depending on the season. So during the summer, if they're not involved in any after school activity, if they're not, playing a sport, then they can go home and do the afternoon prayer. However, during wintertime, because days are shorter, there are two. So the afternoon and the mid-afternoon or midday prayer may end up falling during the school day. And those students who do pray will need to pray during that time. So what does that mean then? That means, is there a space or place, location in the school building that Muslim students can, go and safely do their prayers? And that's something to think about because that question will come up as to, well, where are they going to do it? So, and then we also know that, teachers are not supposed to be alone with students. So that is something definitely to think about, but that is one obligation. Then the diet. So just like there are Jewish students who are strictly kosher, we have Muslim students who are, strictly halal, or they do vegetarian. I think over the last few years, I should say, the lunches have gotten better and there have been more options. Me growing up in Houston, Texas, we had nothing. We had pizza on Fridays that I could eat, or maybe fish one day. So that's gotten better, but that is another, obligation that they have, fasting during the month of Ramadan. So there are students who will continue to do what they would do normally, and that is okay during fasting. Then you have some students who may want to lighten up their physical activities if they play sports, especially during the summer months, but it's up to each individual. And then the two major holidays, sometimes they may fall during school day. Once in a blue moon, they don't. But until school systems offer these 2 days off, and I know that in New York that we've heard that there are some places that are now starting to give Muslim students off on those holidays. So hopefully we will get there soon. But these are just some obligations that Muslim students have during the school year. Moving on, number 3. Muslim students are not a single story, and we've heard about the dangers of single story and single narrative, and that's the same for Muslim students. So we know that post 9/11, in the media and some of the European countries have painted some pictures, and we need to really go back and look at this because Muslim students do feel disenfranchised, just like our Black students, our Latino, and other students. And then we also have to keep in mind, while there are school districts who are doing a great job with providing relevant, making instruction relevant, let's say, providing student choices in terms of the novels and the books that they'll read, we still need to make sure that the teachers are equipped, or they have authentic information, or they're speaking from a place of, intelligence, and not something, where, because what they say will impact the Muslim students in their classes. So we have to be mindful of what we're saying, what we're choosing, are we being inclusive, and is it relevant for the Muslim students in your classes? So not just looking at them in one pile because you just saw the map that or the graph that I showed you how different those countries are. So, and that's how it is. That would be the same thing if we were to think about our, say if there was a Catholic family, you would have somebody different in Iowa, somebody different in their culture and lifestyle would be different in New York. Same thing for the Muslim students. And I think we always have to start from that human level first, and then, make our way up. But just to keep in mind what is taught about Muslims will also influence how they perceive themselves. Number 4, Muslim girls have rights. And this is another, I would say, after the all Muslims are Arab misconception, this is probably number 2 or somewhere on the top there, that Islam oppresses women. And if I were to share the research with you, they say that, 2 out of 3 converts are women who convert Islam. So if Islam oppressed women, why would there be more women converting? And it's just something to think about. Islam preaches equality of the sexes, and what you're seeing in whether what you're reading something or seeing something or hearing something has a lot to do with the cultural backgrounds of those families and how gender role is defined in those countries or in those families. Because there are a lot of Muslim women who've made, great accomplishments. We've had Muslim women leaders be prime ministers. So they do have right. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the rights. I used 2 slides only because this is something, because I've seen, as an English language development or department lead or ESOL, I see a lot of, teachers who feel like, these girls need to be saved. Or I recall when I started working in MCPS and I started wearing the hijab at that time, and I had a para who actually would say stuff like, well, that's very sexist and things like that. And so, and I would just laugh and I would say, hey, maybe we need to have a conversation so I can share with you why. And it's a choice that I have. So as a right, this was a choice that I made to wear the hijab, just like a lot of girls do. And yes, there are many girls who may have been forced, but again, that goes back to the culture and where they're coming from, where their parents are coming from. So the rights in education is that we believe that mothers are the first teachers of the child. In Islam, education is very important. The first word, when you take the pathway, was read in the name of your Lord, which means, Islam came, the message was to reform yourself, to educate yourself, so your lifestyle improves, your character improves. Marriage, women actually are the first to be asked, and it has to be, I guess the imam or the person who conducts the ceremony has to make sure that the girl has said yes. So what you're seeing, the force or the honor killing and things like that, basically based out of culture and ignorance. And then in the Quran, there's earnings and inheritance prescription, which says a woman, if she's working, the money belongs, it's her, that's her salary, and she doesn't really have to, provide for the family unless she chooses to do so. And there's a saying in Islamic history that mothers have 3 times more right than fathers, only because, they give you birth. And so mothers, the latter there, in Islam, right to divorce, women were given right to divorce 1400 years ago. And we know this wasn't even in evident in our most advanced or European countries at that time, or even I think only a few hundred years ago, I would say not even. And then women were actually consulted in political matters, even 1400 years ago. So there's a lot about women in Islam that people don't know. And that's why I chose this as one of the 5 that teachers need to understand, that Muslim women have a lot of right. They're very strong, unless, again, going back to the cultural. So there's a difference between the faith and the culture. And then people who don't know about Islam are not going to know what is the difference, or which is a culture, which is Islam. So hence this course. Muslim girls, as I mentioned, wear hijab by choice. I started to wear hijab in my late 20s. So it was something that I chose to do. The reason for wearing the hijab is because of modesty in both the outer character, or the outer part of the person, and then modesty is also within, your character, in terms of when you're wearing this, you're going to behave in a manner that is respectful, and you're going to ask for respect as well as giving it. And it's for both. Men have some, there are some things that they can't wear, and they need to be careful of wearing. So it's both for men and women. There's autonomy given to Muslim women. So if they choose to wear it, because the accountability in Islam is that every person is accountable for themselves to God. There's no intermediary. And then just coming back, that there are some societies in the Muslim world that may force the women to cover. So when you see the burqa, which is the black, or it could be another color, but mostly it's black, that's more of a cultural thing than Islam. Islam didn't say to cover the face. It was mostly the cultural part of it. So this is number 5, and I did want to share some questions in the past that some teachers or people who've taken the course have asked. And these are some questions that come up, and I won't be able to answer all of them just because of time's sake, but these are some questions, but these are just a few that I've selected. And I'm sure these are some on your mind as well, as you're listening to some of the things that I'm saying here. So a lot of what you will be learning and will be delving into the pathway will delve deeper into the core practices, and you see 2 here of that. The prayers, fasting, will be delving into the actual Islamic calendar and what that hear about. Addressing will be delving more into all of these. And how are Muslim students different from other faiths? Those are some things you'll be able to answer as you go through how is it celebrated? What are resources available to educate myself? These were some really good questions that came up, so they could support. These are teachers who've taken the courses. Is our curriculum designed with them in mind? Is it? And you know your school system better than I. So is it designed with them in mind? Some are becoming more progressive in that. Others still may not, depending on where you may be in the United States. Some people want to make sure, that they're not saying or doing anything offensive. And just to share one of, my experiences, even as an adult, when I was a staff development teacher in Maryland, and I'd been working closely with the principal. And I remember one summer as I was facilitating a session with the leadership team, and I was fasting because it was during, I think, July at that time. And she said, "Oh, I'm worried about you." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, because I don't want you to faint." And normally I don't get offended. But that was something I thought was a little, offensive for me because I'd been working with her. So that told me that she really didn't get to know me as she should have. So again, I'll keep coming back to that relationship building. When we know people, we know then how to behave and act, and then we don't have to worry about if we're offending them. So what are current issues faced by Muslim students? We'll be talking more about that. And then how can I make them feel more comfortable in my class? And maybe this is something, if one or two of you want to share out, if you've used a strategy or, created something, but these are just a handful of questions. And when I've had virtual or in person, of course, we've delved into the content even more. So it is about 7:31, and I think I will stop here so we could open it up. Kelly, is that okay?
Yes, I was writing down questions that came up, and then so if you have a question, please put it in the chat box. But so far we have, what are the two holidays and what are those holidays celebrating?
So, and I'll just respond to like this. So the two holidays are, one is Eid al-Fitr, which comes right after Ramadan. So, the Ramadan ends, and the next day is Eid al-Fitr, and it just means celebrating the end of Ramadan. You fasted for 29, 30 days. And if you think about Christmas, how that is celebrated with family, friends, people coming together, giving gifts, dressing up, exactly like that. I think being humans, that we kind of overlap on that kind of how we celebrate. But we do go to the mosque in the morning and do the prayers. And then after that, we just kind of, everybody branches out and does, whatever they want to do in terms of visiting and just social gatherings and food and lots of sweet, just like in Christmas. So that's Eid al-Fitr. The second holiday is, and Eid al-Fitr happens in Ramadan, right? That's a 9th month of the lunar calendar. And actually the lunar calendar is 11 days shorter. So that explains why Ramadan, is different every year. And then the second holiday is Eid al-Adha, A-D-H-A, and these are all Arabic terms, and you'll learn those when you register for the pathway. That is when, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the pilgrimage or the Hajj, the Black Stone, if you've seen the cube-shaped building in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. So that story or that particular tradition is about the story of Abraham. And, that's also a pillar once in a lifetime, or if you can, afford it. And Eid happens at right at the end there too. And then that happens 2 months and 10 days after Ramadan. So those are the two holidays, and they're very close in terms of when they happen in the year. I know there were some more questions were popping up as I was talking, but I did.
Yes.
Let me see if I can.
The next one was, are kosher and halal similar, the same?
So I'm just gonna touch upon that a little bit. Yes. So they're done. I eat kosher also, by the way. Yes. So the answer is slightly yes. There's just a little bit of difference, but in terms of how it's cut and the meat is cut and possibly the prayers that's said before it. But halal is not as strict in terms of you have to have an imam, like a rabbi has to be there, right? From my understanding, I could be wrong, but an imam doesn't have to be. And if I go to a Muslim's house, and if they say they're eating halal, I don't question them. I will eat it. So it's not strict in that sense, but for the most part, they are very similar. And so I do eat kosher if there's no halal available. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. Okay. What are the cultural and religious views about dating that might impact our students in school?
Ooh, yeah, that's a deep conversation there. So yes, so in Islam, dating is not encouraged, or I should even say the word allowed, in terms of if you are strictly following the pathway, the way of life or religion, only because and if we understand it, it is to help both both that are involved. If they're alone, if they're by themselves, it leads to things. So that, just to give you a simple response as to why it is not allowed. However, if you're going in a group, you're with people, and then that would be okay then.
Okay. What tips
Just
do
to
you-
add real quick.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
Finish.
I was just gonna say, but yeah, I was gonna say, but that doesn't mean that people don't date. They probably do, just like with, any other faith or culture. So I just wanted to put that up.
Right. There are rules, and there are rules we sometimes choose not to follow. Right?
Yes,
No matter what,
absolutely.
no matter.
Absolutely. We know that.
Okay, what tips do you have for reaching out to parents and making parents feel respected and comfortable or understood in the school and classroom?
The tips would be just, back to school night is happening everywhere. If you have Muslim, parents coming, just, make sure that you touch base with them. I know some people say, well, some males don't make eye contact. That's okay. You can still, talk to them. And I think with any parents, emailing, the communication line is open, reaching out. And once you have that relationship with a student, it will be easier to make, build that relationship or extend it to the parents. So there isn't any, like, I would say magic to that. It would be like with any, students or families that you're connecting with. So unless there's something specific that you have, I can respond to, but for the most part, it's just making sure, if their child is, say failing or something, you want to make sure you're reaching out just like you would any other student. If they're doing well, you want to let them know. So it's just building relationships. That's all. And I think once you build it, then you'll know, especially depending on what culture they're from. And, and I can almost guarantee that they'll be friendly enough to share some things with you in terms of their culture. So you don't even have to ask, but it's that first step, getting to them.
All right. Is it okay to partner males and females for peer translation, groups, partner work?
I think you were cutting off, but if I understood correctly, are you saying, or is a question that when you're working in small groups in the classroom? Is that what it was?
Yes. Can you put males and females together as partners?
I'm sorry, you're cutting off. I don't know if everybody else is getting the same thing.
Yeah, she is cutting off. Maybe she could type in the chat and you can read it from
Yeah.
the chat.
Or if it's okay, Kelly, is the person who put it in there, are you able to just say it?
Yes, I'm an EL teacher with mostly all my Muslim students are from Yemen and speak Arabic. And I was just wondering, I have to provide accommodations, especially for newcomers. And I have 3 non-English speaking newcomers this year. So I give them the Arabic word-to-word Arabic to English dictionary that they can use during testing and in class. And I try to find peer translators within the school, within their grade, and sometimes move them to that classroom. But is it okay to mix male and female? Is there a cultural barrier there to doing that?
So I would think, so I grew up, to me, I was pretty, I mean, it would bother me, but again, looking at, if the child says to you or the student says to you, Ms. Malone, I don't feel comfortable, being in a group of, say, boys or something, I would just move her to another group. I mean, it's as simple as that. However, and that is something you can also, I don't know how you get to know your students at the beginning of the year. Like for me, I would do a quick survey about how you like to be grouped and things like that. I think we are at that stage, in America, where we have such different demographics, and as teachers, we have a lot to learn. So maybe even, or some kind of an activity where you get to know. So that's one way. Or when a child is, coming up to you, and saying it, so that's another way. Or just, if you feel comfortable putting it out there and saying, hey, or in a general sense that they can come see you if there's, an issue with the group or something. I wouldn't phrase it in a negative way, but in a way that it allows the students to approach you. But that's very thoughtful of you. But I've had it in the past where, they will just come up and say, just because of the relationships that I built, I take a little bit longer in that, because our students, because I used to teach level 1, and it's very important to get to know what they mean, their gestures and everything. So I think we have to go that extra step to get to know them. So it's again, I'm going to keep coming back to saying relationships, and just trying to get to know them in the beginning, through surveys, through just communication, and then hopefully they'll be able to let you know. I think you'll find out soon enough, if that makes sense. And it will vary in terms of the individuals as well. As I said, to me, I grew up, but we were pretty, I would like to say, moderate, which is how it should be, because, we're going to live in this world, and we're going to come across, somebody that looks like a boy or somebody looks like a girl, and we're going to have to, you can't be on an island. So they also have to learn that. In the beginning, it might be a little, it may take some time, but hopefully they will understand, if that makes sense.
Okay, are there any resources for teachers that you recommend of gestures that are offensive or not offensive, or things that we might inadvertently do that we don't know could be taken the wrong way?
I think as a mainstream Muslim, there isn't really anything that I can think of in terms of gestures and things that might be offensive. However, it may vary from culture to culture. So I would honestly have to dig deep to find something in terms that would cover everybody. But at this point, I think it's just culture to culture. And there's, as somebody said, in terms of when we asked them, what did you know about your Muslim students? And they said they come from a lot of different diverse backgrounds. So as a Muslim growing up in America, and most of the Muslims that I know, there really isn't anything that's, I would say, something that stands out that's as offensive. But I think the only thing is, when you, of course, nobody will hear, but the only thing that gets to be offensive is when you're linked to, terrorism, when you're linked to anything that the mainstream media puts out that is unauthentic. That might be more, and that's what we have to be mindful of, not using those words, using words, that the Muslim students, that shows respect. I know that was probably not what you wanted to hear in terms of tips or any resource, but I will definitely look for something. But overall, I think I don't think there's anything that stands out that I can say is offensive, if that makes sense.
I think it's a good point to reiterate is that there are so many countries, cultures, backgrounds, different ways things are interpreted, that like any, religion, you're going to have such a widespread. So it is hard to answer questions, I'm sure. We have a couple minutes, so feel free to unmute your mic or put your question in the chat box. We can take maybe one or two more in the chat box now. Is there a place?
Can I ask?
I have to say, the one Darlene just put, Gruner, I think, I hope I said that right. Is there a place to check what is halal? I work with very young children and they ask me all the time, is this halal? Like the Chex cereal. I think Chex should be okay. But basically, I think now if you just put in Zabiha, let me just write this down. You can check for Zabiha or halal, and you will get tons of stuff. And there is one other website, which I cannot think of the name right now, but I can share that if there's emails available. But if you just put in Zabiha or halal, that will tell you. And I mean, there's another lesson in itself, reading the ingredients and what it has. So if it has any meat products or, gelatin or anything like that, that is not going to be halal. So like I would say Starburst, marshmallows that are not halal marshmallows. Kosher marshmallows are okay too, and halal are okay. But regular marshmallows, they can't eat. There's gelatin in that. Skittles, Starburst, these are candy that, oh my God, I wish I could eat, but I can't because it has gelatin in it. So yes. Yes, you're right. Fruit snacks as well. So those are something. I have my friends who are not Muslims, they will ask me, did you check the ingredients? I'm like, hey, I'm an adult. I think I can figure that out now. But it's cute, that once they get to know you, or they'll come tell me, hey, I don't think you can eat this. So it's just building relationships.
This is Nasa. I have a question in the chat. I work in an elementary school and we have several Islamic students who are not able to participate in music class. They come to sit in the main office and they basically just sit and play video games. So my question was, what kind of structured activity could be appropriate for the children to do while they are not able to participate in music?
Ooh, thank you for asking that question. So if you take the pathway, you're going to learn a little bit about the music and the art. So for that, I know that is a very tough area right now in terms of music, because honestly, a lot of our Muslim parents don't have the background in terms of what is permissible, what may not be. So they put the whole music thing on one plate and say it's not permitted. So, and I tend to disagree with that, because music, anything that is, just like when we talk about sins and doing wrong and inappropriate thing, if songs have that in them, yes, I can say, no, the kids shouldn't listen. But the problem here is it's the parents, and schools have to follow what the parents say. I think if the music teacher could, come up with just activities for them, and I don't have anything in front of me right now to share with you, but certainly I can share that with Kelly, just a few things to give you an idea. But I agree with you, it should be structured. They shouldn't be. I mean, why are they even allowed to have the phone? Why can't they be working on some other homework or other assignments, or just reading in general, or reading activities? That would still be okay. So, I would say if they can't have anything music related, then to have something else that's structured, like you said, and not have the phones or video games on them. I mean, that to me, that would be like, why is the school allowing that? So if the child can't be in that class, then provide something in terms of anything that's gonna, if they're having trouble in math, give them something like that, or any art activity, anything like that, where they're not using the video games and their phones.
Okay, I think we have another question
you.
here.
Mhm.
A student from Yemen, she doesn't think she will go to high school because she's expected to stay home and care for her younger siblings. So how can you, and how would you approach that with the family? Is that a conversation the teacher can have?
So definitely, teachers should have a conversation. However, then it also depends on what is the relationship you've built with the parents to be able to have that conversation. And I think providing resources, showing them, what are some opportunities for her. But yeah, absolutely. I think as an educator, if we know if something like that, comes, in front of us, we shouldn't just, let it go and say, oh, the parents. But if you can provide them with opportunities, resources, just to show them, and then after that, it's their decision, because we do want every child, to be able to find a path, whether it's a career or college. I know last year was my first year in the high school, and there was one student, he was Spanish speaking, and I was on the phone with him. He wasn't coming to school. He was 20, and I was trying to convince him, and his mom really wanted him to go. And I said, what are you going to do? And he's like, well, I'm working at a construction. I said, how long are you going to work there? So at this point, he didn't understand what I was trying to say. He was just thinking about the money. So, there was only so much, and we tried, I think, at every level. And his mother couldn't do anything, and he chose not to. So we let it go. I mean, there isn't really anything you can do. So same thing here, if you just share everything that's there, out there for them to be successful and to find, a path, and then provide those opportunities. If not, there's only so much that's in our control. And all of you being here just shows how much you care about your students to take the time. So just keep pushing and doing what you can, what's in your control, and just keep building those relationships. I think that's where you will see your hard work come to light. And I hope you guys do sign up and take the pathway. It really, I really had a wonderful time creating and writing this course. And I've received phenomenal feedback. And so I hope you will give it a thought. You will get 1 credit for each of the courses. So absolutely, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Kelly, for doing this.
Thank you. And I second what Candace just said in the chat to you and to everyone of thank you for doing this on a school night right at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
I know for some folks, this is their first week of school, so that's a little crazy. But thank you everyone for everything you
Mhm.
do for our students. As I said in the chat, we have been recording. And as soon as Zoom finishes processing and saving the recording, we'll work on getting it available to you online. When that happens, you'll get an email through our automated system to give you a link to the recording and the slides. And then Farhana, if there's anything you want me to include in that email, feel free to send it over. If you have any questions.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find some of those. Yeah, definitely. I'll try to see if there's anything in terms of the offensive one, because again, that's just something hard to come up with at the top of my head in terms of, especially when it's just a diverse group. And then the other thing was the music, because I want to make sure, I forget who was it, that Nessa, I think it was, who asked. So yes, absolutely. I'll send you that, Kelly.
Okay, and if you think of anything, if you have questions, feel
Sure.
free to send them to me. I'll put it's info@englishlearnerportal.com, and we can always send out a follow-up email. We have everyone's email from your registration, so we could follow up with any other questions that come up. But thank you for taking the time to get past some of the myths that are out there that we hear every day. And hopefully we'll see you. If you aren't ready to jump into the course on next Monday, the first one begins. They'll all start again in November. So you'll be on our email list. You'll get more information about that. So again, thank you so much. And you'll be hearing from me within the next 24 hours with the link and the handouts, and please share them with all your colleagues who couldn't make it here tonight. Thank you, Farhana.
Thank you, everyone. Hopefully I'll see you in in the pathway, all 3 courses.
Thank
Bye.
you very much for taking the time to share with us, Farhana.
You're welcome. I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. And you have a good night.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. You're welcome, everyone.